I'm Karen Varga with CEAg World Greenhouse Produce, an innovative brand that engages with the rapidly expanding global greenhouse produce industry through a variety of platforms. Our mission is to educate and connect greenhouse produce growers and industry allies to help them better understand and sustainably advance the global food industry. On this episode of CEAg Talks, I'll be speaking with Ryan Lefers, who is the CEO and co-founder of iyris. And iyris is a company dedicated to pioneering innovative solutions that address global food security challenges while minimizing environmental impact. Ryan is also a member of the CEAg World Advisory Board. Ryan, welcome to CEAg Talks.
Thanks for having me.
So Ryan, if you want to kick it off with just telling us what's your background and how did you get into horticulture?
Yeah, sure. So I actually grew up on a farm in South Dakota. So you could say that farming is in my blood. So I was on a small grain and dairy farm there in South Dakota. And then spent a number of years actually as an environmental engineer before completing my PhD with a focus on controlled environment agriculture. So that's how I got into the business.
And, you have kind of an interesting background in terms of where you did your studies. Can you expand on that?
Yeah, sure. I finished my PhD in Saudi Arabia. And a lot of people ask me like how or why or, what led to that move. And really it came down to, I saw sort of this big challenge in the world where, we have this expanding population, we have these finite resources. And one of the biggest challenges I saw is like, well, how do you feed people in a place where there's no water? So, and with diminishing water resources and demand for more water, Saudi Arabia is a perfect place to do some of that work. So anyway, I landed in Saudi Arabia and had a great experience there with some of my research work. And then we founded a company, met my co-founders there at the university and started from there.
Would you like to tell us more about the origins of that company?
Yeah, sure. So it was really born out of, again, like that extreme environment. And so my co-founders, Mark Tester is a professor of plant science there. Daria Baran is a professor of material science. And actually we sort of came together and we were looking at how can we create a system with different solutions that would help farmers to grow food, especially thinking about fresh produce because it's the most perishable in an environment like that where you have challenges around water security, access to good soils, and also access to good temperatures. It can get very warm in the middle of summer, as most people are aware.
So what was the company's name and when did you launch?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Mark and I originally started working on this like early 2018. Daria joined us soon thereafter. And we originally called the company Red Sea Farms. We were actually born on the shores of the Red Sea. The university there, I used to look at the sea every day from my office. So we called the company Red Sea Farms. And originally we were focusing on how can we use things like saltwater resources to help with cooling, also looking at plants and how we can make them more salt and heat tolerant into this system, which we were thinking of as like a saltwater greenhouse. And what we realized is as the company sort of grew, is that this big challenge of heat was a global challenge. So saltwater and salty soils are still something that we care about and we think about, but a lot of that is induced by actually heat and challenges around heat. And when it's hot, plants use more water. Water evaporates more quickly. We tend to find hot places that just have less rainfall. I mean, there are exceptions to that, of course. But anyway, so we really shifted to focus on this big challenge of heat. That's how we got to where we are today with some of our leading products in the market.
And so what technologies came out of the establishment of Red Sea and then the subsequent research that you did? Can you name a few?
Yeah, of course. So I'll talk about really two main technologies today. So the first is actually, so I'll tell you the origins of it. So when I first met Daria and also our CTO, Daniel Bryant, we actually met at a table outside of the library there at the university. And they had actually come to me because they were working on a product that was actually, it was a photovoltaic cell. So think of like solar energy, but it was a transparent one. So this cell actually absorbed heat from the sun. It let the light through, and then it would create energy from that, from the heat. It would create electricity. And they knew that I was active in controlled environment agriculture. And they asked me, like, did I think that this would be a good application for greenhouses? And I said, first of all, what you created is amazing. So that's really, really cool. And I said, secondly, like the most important thing for us here at this moment in time is just to keep the heat out, because we spend so much energy trying to cool the greenhouse. So the fact that you can create electricity from this is great, but the 95% of the battle is keeping that heat out. I think Daria's response was something like, oh, well, that's a lot easier, or that's the easy part. And so that's where we started focusing really on developing these covers. Daniel, again, our CTO, spent a lot of time in the lab sort of refining what we think of now as an additive. So there's an additive that we put into the manufacturing process for these various covers. So you see behind me, this is a film or a polyethylene cover. That we put the additive into the manufacturing process. The film is extruded, and it comes with the product name is Second Sky. So Second Sky is built in. You can think of it as like an Intel Inside sort of approach. So it's built into the roof. All you do is you replace your roof, and boom, you have this new cover that actually selectively filters solar radiation in such a way that it blocks a percentage of the heat from coming into your greenhouse, but it maximizes the light transmission for photosynthesis. So we can do this with polyethylene, like, is behind me. We can also do this with a lot of growers are growing under nets. And so we can do this with nets. I've seen some amazing results with nets. We can also do it with hard covers, like a polycarbonate is a hard cover that people often use. And anyway, so we can put this additive into different covers depending on the system and what you're using. And we can also tune the amount of heat that you want to block. So we think of it in terms of like low, medium, high, but really you could set your percentage. So in low, we typically think of blocking somewhere around, 40 to 50% of the heat. Medium would be somewhere in that like 50 to 65%. And then a high would be like 65 to 80% of the heat that we're actually blocking from coming into the system. Anyway, that's how we think about it. That's how the product works. And it's been really cool and interesting to then see the results on the plants.
And this is technology that hasn't, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's first of its kind.
Yeah, it really is. So what you'll see out in the market, because we work with growers all over the planet, actually. And so what people are doing now, there's a couple of solutions for dealing with heat. One, you just don't grow when it's hot, or you move to no location. And we see people doing that. The other thing that people do is they put on like a black shade, just pull it over the top, or in a more, say, high-tech system, you might have a retractable shade. And then the sort of third piece that we see is people putting on whitewash. So they'll paint their systems with whitewash. I mean, let's ignore the first one, just move to a more temperate location. If you're stuck in your location, the sort of trade-off is that, you can put on shade or you can put on whitewash, but you're going to lose some light. And so farmers have to balance. This is this balancing act between, I need light for photosynthesis, but with that light comes this heat. And so I have to balance out sort of, it's not even like maximizing production as much as it is like trading off production for just keeping the crop alive. Do you know what I'm saying? And so that's the trade-off that's historically been made. And what's unique about this product is that you can still maximize your light while keeping that heat out. And so it allows that sort of step change in terms of how you think about and manage your system, because you are now still getting a lot of light in and keeping the heat out. So that's the big difference.
Okay. And you had mentioned a second technology too?
Yeah, well, genetics. So we also do some breeding. So again, so Daria is our brilliant material scientist. A lot of the credit for this Second Sky product goes to the original work she did at her lab. And then Mark is our plant genetics guy, world renowned actually for salinity tolerance, has done a lot of work over the years in salinity tolerance. But Mark actually, this has been a journey for him and his team, where they started originally looking at tomatoes. Man, it was over 10 years ago now, because and they originally started looking at tomatoes really interestingly for salinity tolerance. And they were looking at wild relatives of tomatoes that grew in places like, well, for example, on the shores of the Galapagos Islands, like getting splashed by seawater. And so these wild relatives of tomatoes, they're these like tiny tomato things, but they're, close enough related to tomatoes that you can do things like hybridization with some of our commercial varieties to try to breed in resilience. And originally, again, the target was around salinity tolerance. What we found is that as Mark was working on this, is that some similar traits around salinity tolerance also related to heat, drought tolerance, and just general resilience. And what we also found is that we could just go a lot faster in delivering the results of this for the benefit of tomato growers if we focused on rootstocks. So a lot of tomatoes that are grown, especially in CEA, are grafted globally. And so you have a different root and a different shoot or scion. So that shoot or scion will be whatever you're choosing to grow: cherry tomato, beefsteak tomato, yellow tomato, whatever you're trying to market. And then the root will often be selected for specific traits, resilience or vigor, whatever. And then you'll graft that. And then that grafted plant will just produce better quality, more tomatoes over the life of its tenure in the greenhouse, so to speak. And so that's where the work really went to, is focusing on rootstocks. So we have a number of tomato rootstocks now that we're in the final stages of plant variety rights protection. So they'll be coming to market very soon, later this year, most likely for wider distribution. But we've done a number of field trials globally and just seen really great results in harsh climates, both undercover and in the open field, where things are really tough. So that's the genetic side of the business.
Wow, two completely different technologies, but I could see them both being very useful. So what type of growers would benefit from using technologies like like Second Sky and also these new types of tomato rootstocks?
Yeah. So we think of it as anyone who struggles with sort of peak heat during the day. So we get a lot of questions about what happens during the winter? Well, the point is less heat comes in during the day, but actually we've seen in the winter at night usually is your concern. That's when it gets really cold. And you still have the insulating properties of the cover. So night temperatures sort of converge to whatever they were with your old cover, but you have less heat coming in. If you're trying to grow in an area that is hot or during a season that's hot, or you have issues with I don't know what my weather's going to be like. It might go really hot next week and then be really cold the following week. This just shaves off that peak heat. And what we've noticed especially is that it reduces your leaf temperature, which reduces your demand for water and fertilizers, just keeps your plant a lot less stressed. And we reduce soil and substrate temperatures as well, because there's just less heat radiation that's getting into the system to warm up those leaves and that substrate. And so if you're trying to grow and heat is an issue, this is a big opportunity for you. And that could be from places like Dubai, where we're active, to Mexico. The picture behind me is actually strawberries in Michoacan, where we had some really great results this year through the winter season, even to places like a summer crop. So, what people might not think that the UK is a particularly hot climate, but it's been incredibly challenging during the summers there, because you have these long days where they're getting, increasingly hot summers, and they're trying to grow berries through the middle of that. And so this product is a great product for that sort of environment as well.
And other places within the US too, I would imagine.
Oh, for sure. For sure. Yeah. I mean, you can think of anywhere that your cropping cycle overlaps with periods of heat stress. This is an opportunity.
We've been talking a lot about Red Sea, but if you do a Google search for Red Sea, it's going to direct you to iyris. Could you just explain what growers should be looking for there, and in terms of name and what the
of course. So we've rebranded as iyris. That's really around our renewed focus, or let's say refined focus on the technology products. So we used to run some proof of concept facilities, it's actually fresh produce facilities within the Middle East, which we've actually transitioned to a partner who's now operating those facilities. So as a company now, we're solely focused on technology and technology sales and serving our customers who are growers and a lot of different kinds of crops worldwide. We do have that experience of being a grower ourselves from those proof of concept facilities. So we can relate to the pain and the challenges of being a grower. It's not an easy task. And my hats are off to the growers who are bringing us that great quality fresh produce every day. It's not an easy task, and these people are working hard. They're super smart. We've lived that life ourselves, and we just want to help other growers to succeed now.
Okay, so we should look for iyris rather than.
You should look for iyris. Yeah, I mean, if you Google Red Sea, and a lot of people some people still talk about us as Red Sea Farms, like especially in the Middle East where we started. If you do Google Red Sea Farms or Red Sea, it will direct you to iyris. We're going with iyris now, and happy to talk to anyone about how we can support your growing operations.